So why is Jesus almost always shown crucified on a hill? Paintings show it, movies show it, and across the world you can find scores of Calvary hills commemorating the crucifixion. The association is so common that it's become a cultural assumption. I even asked Google if Jesus was crucified on a hill, and the AI overview said yes. But I went to the Bible to see what it had to say, and guess what? The Bible doesn't mention anything at all about the crucifixion site being on a hill or a mountain. There is just no mention of this at all. So today, we're going to dive into biblical geography. We'll look at what the Gospels actually say. We'll track down exactly when this hill first appeared, and we'll unpack why the hill actually matters for Christianity. So the crucifixion site is described in all four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but they just call it a place. The place is called Golgotha. This name comes from the Hebrew word meaning skull. So in Greek, that word is cranion, and in Latin it becomes Calvaria. So this is what the Gospels say. Matthew says they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull. Mark, they brought him to the place Golgotha, which is translated place of a skull. John, he went out carrying his own cross to the place called the place of a skull, which in Hebrew is called Golgotha. And Luke just says the place called the skull. In the original Greek, and here I remind you that the four Gospels were originally written in Greek, they all use the term place, topos, of a skull, cranion. None of them mention a hill or a mountain at all. The Gospels don't tell us anything else about Golgotha, what it looked like, why it was called skull, or anything else. So where did the hill come from, and why is it so firmly attached to the crucifixion? Well, the answer to this mystery starts in the 4th century, and it involves an anonymous pilgrim, a Roman emperor, and the construction of one of Christianity's most important churches. In the 4th century, Constantine, the first Christian Roman emperor, launched an ambitious project to locate the sites where the events of the Gospels had occurred. So legend has it that Constantine's mother, Helena, found the tomb of Jesus and the true cross in Jerusalem. Constantine then ordered the Bishop of Jerusalem to build a church where the tomb and cross were found. This became what we now call the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. As all of this was happening, Eusebius, a bishop and a historian of the time, documented the process. Yet he, in his documentation, never described the site as the place of crucifixion or as a hill. Instead, Eusebius explains that the location was just the tomb of Jesus buried beneath a mound of earth after Roman pagans filled in the area to build a temple to a goddess. It's around this time when the connection between the crucifixion and a hill or a high place actually happens. The first mention comes in around 333-334 CE, right as the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was being completed. In a travel document now known as the Bordeaux Itinerary, an anonymous pilgrim wrote the following about their tour of Jerusalem. On the left hand is the little hill of Golgotha where the Lord was crucified. Now, the original Latin text used the term Monticulus Golgotha, Golgotha Hill or Little Mount Golgotha. And this is interesting because elsewhere in the same document, the pilgrim is very careful to distinguish between hills and mountains. They use monticulus for small hills and montem for larger ones, like when they discuss the Mount of Olives. So the first time Golgotha clearly appears as a hill is not in the Gospels or in any traditional church document, but in basically a 4th century travel guide. So after the Pilgrim of Bordeaux, other people start discussing Golgotha's height and its hill-like features. In 350 CE, the Bishop of Jerusalem, a guy named Cyril, described the place of crucifixion as being a high one, saying, "This holy Golgotha stands high above us and shows itself to this day." Another 4th century writer, the Archbishop of Constantinople, describes the crucifixion site as a tower-like rock. But another bishop around the same time, a guy named Epiphanius who lives in Cyprus, questioned that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was the right spot of the crucifixion. This is what he said. The contour of the site bears no resemblance to a skull. Neither is it on some peak, so that this can be interpreted as a skull, as we say of the head's position on a body, nor is it on a height. And indeed, it is no higher than other places either. Next to it is the Mount of Olives, which is higher, and Gibeon, 8 milestones off, is the highest. Even the height which was once in Zion, but has now been leveled, was itself taller than Golgotha. Epiphanius is essentially saying, if the crucifixion was on a high place, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre cannot be the location because it cannot be described as a high place. And this is the important part. His need to clarify the misconception suggests that the link between Golgotha, an elevated location, and the site of the church was widespread. And if it wasn't, why bother addressing the claim? Now you might be thinking, Jerusalem is rocky and hilly everywhere, right? Even the Bible calls the Promised Land the hill country. So maybe the crucifixion really did happen on a hill, and the writers of the Gospels didn't think it was worth mentioning because hills were everywhere. Maybe, but this is my problem with that theory. Mountains are incredibly important in both the Old and the New Testaments. Think of all the references to mountains in the Bible, ones that are named explicitly. Mount Sinai, Horeb, Moriah, Zion, Ararat, Tabor, Megiddo, the Sermon on the Mount of Olives, the Great Commission, so on and so on and so on, right? So the silence about a hill or a mountain at Golgotha is noticeable. Placing the crucifixion on a hill would have fit very neatly, very nicely within familiar Judeo-Christian ideas and symbols. And if we were to assume that it must have been on a hill because Jerusalem is hilly, then geography complicates that argument a little bit. Sure, Jerusalem has many hills, but that also means that it has many valleys. And as the Bible suggests, the crucifixion was viewed by many spectators. So an execution in a valley could have still be easily seen by people standing on higher ground. Think of football stadiums, people on the elevated seats looking down into the arena or the floor or the field. So what can we conclude from the textual evidence then? Well, the idea of Golgotha being a hill or a mountain appears to have been either an invention by the early tourism industry in Jerusalem or a Western invention, one that first appeared around 300 years after the death of Jesus and right around the time Constantine was constructing the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And since then, it's been a part of church tradition. So does any of this actually matter? I'm not so sure. Like other widely accepted Christian ideas that actually aren't in the Bible, the hill invention persists, I think, because it's symbolically powerful. It's a potent visual image. And maybe we need the site to be a mountain, right? Maybe elevation makes the sacrifice feel bigger, more dramatic, more worthy of the moment when, according to Christian ideas, everything changed. But we need to admit that it's a little bit ironic that the one geographical detail that everyone thinks they know about the crucifixion isn't actually in the Bible. By the end of the classical period, texts begin to mention it. By the Renaissance, paintings depict it. And in the 21st century, it's regurgitated in AI slop. We've built so many literal and figurative shrines on top of hills, we've depicted the crucifixion on hills so often that we've buried the truth underneath it all. If you want me to feature any other mountain or elevated idea from the world of religion or myth, let me know in the comments below. And if you want to support me and my work, please visit my blog and my Patreon using the links in the description.